With so many series coming out on Netflix every month, it may get overwhelming when you sit down to decide on something to binge. More than ever, it is the hyped and popular shows that many people settle for, and sometimes we miss the underrated ones that are really, truly amazing. Dark on Netflix is definitely one such show that often gets overlooked, but I think more recently it has started to get a lot more viewers tune in to check it out. I myself am one of these viewers, and having watched the first season, I must say I was completely captivated by what it had to offer. I've seen many YouTubers focus on the complex and puzzle box nature of the show, but what stood out to me in season 1 was the approach to the story and characters through themes and concepts. In this video essay, I'm going to be exploring all of these different aspects of Dark Season 1, and how ultimately it has become one of my favourite first seasons of television so soon after watching it. There will be brief spoilers from time to time, so if you haven't seen the first season, I'd recommend catching up before watching this video. To stay up to date with all of my future videos on Dark, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoy this video, remember to leave a like rating. Without further ado, let's dive into my analysis of Dark Season 1. So, having watched the first season of Dark twice in the same week, I have to say that it may be one of my favourite first seasons of television since season 1 of Westworld back in 2016. Like that first season, I found myself amazed at how the show's writers and creators could create a puzzle box narrative that doesn't rely on this formula as being the standout element of the show. In particular, it could have come across as gimmicky if they weren't able to pull it off. But what Baron Bo Odar and his partner have done is balance characters, story and themes at the heart of the show in a way which makes the structural elements only feed off the emotional connection that the audience is given. The German show is a science fiction mystery thriller that includes hints of the supernatural and a gritty tale that takes into question the origin of humans, about the screwing nature of time, about fate, and the thread that connects the past, present, and future. It essentially dips into many different genres across the course of this first season, but again, it does this in a way which is seamless and only fitting for what is going on. When two children go missing in the small town of Winden, secrets of the past are exposed, thereby bringing to the surface the fractures and layers that exist among 4 families as they search for their kids. Its supernatural elements do a great job of connecting these families and the town to all of the different timelines. The families that Dark follows situates around the Carnwards, the Nilsons, the Tiedelmans and the Dopplers, who are all connected by their intertwined family histories. The main plotline begins when 11-year-old Mikkel disappears on November the 4th, 2019, and at the same time he is accompanied by his older siblings Magnus and Martha, and their friends Jonas, Bartosz and Franziska. While everyone fled after being spooked by a strange sound in the Winden caves, Mikkel vanished, and as it's later revealed, he fell backwards through time to 1986. Here he was eventually adopted by Inez Carnwald under the name Michael. He was also befriended by the younger version of Hannah, which ended up in marriage, and together they became the parents of Jonas. Now, Dark has a whole lot of characters, and to many this may sound as a bit of a challenge. But none of these characters are purely saints, and that is one of the best parts of the show. There is no good and evil, but rather a realistic fact that good and evil resides in everyone. We are all the heroes and also villains in the story, one way or another. It's examples like Hannah charging Ulrich with rape, even though he was innocent because she's madly in love with him, that makes this point more evident across the board. Every character in Season 1 has moments where they do things that are purely wrong or reversingly from the heart. It is compelling to see how, as viewers, you are confronted with your own initial views about the characters and how they change along with the progress of the show. It will make you so conflicted till the points that you're not sure who is wrong and who is right, and in moments you'll empathise with them all. Another good thing about these characters is their complexity and their personalities that are so well carved out, and the writers give us a thorough glimpse of their growth. They are also dimensional, layers upon layers, adding onto their personalities, but they are ultimately human, and their emotions are truly well portrayed. Ulrich was one of my personal favourites because we really saw that inner drive to find his son, but also the constant pain of not being able to do anything and the mistakes that followed this. The fact that he doesn't quite realise that Mikkel becomes the father of Jonas adds another level of complexity to an already complex narrative. Also, with the connections he makes to Mads, his younger brother, back in 1986, it really adds just another layer to this already connective storyline. But as I say, this complexity isn't as well executed as it is without the emotional connection to the story and the characters. Just when you think you've figured out one of the characters, the writers will give you a whole new arc about them. There are many things that make Dark stand out, and as we've already touched on, the first thing you'll hear about from critics and other content creators is the incredibly complex and detailed plot. Perhaps the most intriguing thing, however, is how confidently the show digs into philosophical issues while still remaining relatively accessible. Its primary villain, at least through the beginning of the show so far, is curiously named Noah, a man who dresses as a priest and inhabits a church building. It soon becomes clear, however, that Noah is not actually a priest at all and has no use for God. He is ultimately a Luciferian figure, an antichrist orchestrating the lives of those around him towards some mysterious greater purpose that exacts many casualties. As the people of Winden find themselves swept along in a tide of events they don't understand, a couple of them discover what's really going on, such as Jonas and Ulrich. But even they have many questions surrounding what they discover. Through various means which include their future selves, they attempt to break the machinery of Noah's plans and free themselves and their loved ones from disaster. Whether they succeed or not, well, that remains to be seen, but so far it's not looking great. Like many tragedies, Dark asks terrifying questions about the relationship between fate and free will. Whether there is a higher order to the universe, and if such a higher order exists, whether it is ultimately on our side. It implicitly asks whether our lives are governed by the loving, provident God of Judeo-Christian tradition, or by the cruel, inconsistent theology of ancient paganism. Although the answer to such a question is theoretically a foregone conclusion to the Christian viewer, it still troubles believers and agnostics alike. Really, everyone has to grapple with it at some point, even if they don't realise it. That's a large part of what makes the show so gripping and so distressing, especially in the current pop culture climate. The secular apocalypse running through pop culture speaks to a shared disappointment with the failed promise of modernism, as much as the decline of faith in religious institutions and doctrines. In other words, our preoccupation with monsters and evil aliens reflects a collective fear of impending disaster and a displeasure about our ability to save ourselves through any means, whether social, technological, or political. Where many versions of the secular apocalypse channel societal fear into portrayals of the end of the world as we know it, Dark makes a rather more unsettling proposal. What if there is no actual end to the world, and instead our doom has just been playing itself out all along, in the form of history's endless and unstoppable repetitions? What if, rather than hurtling towards a single fiery Armageddon of bombs or monsters, we're just trapped in an endless loop of our own mistakes, in what is an eternal self-inflicted misery? Now, I'm still debating whether Dark thinks there's anything out there like a god, which is of course bigger than fate. God is mentioned throughout the show as a possible recourse, as a sort of vague opposing force to Noah's schemes, but so far it sure doesn't look like he's intervening much. In the midst of family drama and time travelling, Dark has in store a whole array of philosophies to boggle your mind and keep you questioning your own beliefs and sanity from episode to episode. Largely dealing with the question of time and human origin, the season tends to treat time in the same vicinity as that of God. To create a world without time enslaving us humans is one of the central running themes, and something that it follows quite religiously. Using fantasy, it takes on a very different angle of storytelling in the television era, questioning the meaning of faith and family, blood and time. From this, it successfully takes into questions about fate, destiny, and choices. Can you change your destiny? Can you be truly free from the clutches of time? Can you change your future? Are we really ever free of time? Dark asks a lot of these questions and truly makes you want to sit down and think to yourself. All the questioning in the show arouses extreme curiosity and is a reflection on why we act the way we do, about the demons that lie inside of us and the consequences of our actions on past and future. Its razor-sharp attention on all of these themes and its main story represents a phenomenal balancing act that most shows today can barely attempt. And speaking of this, it has to be mentioned that much of the visual cues and messages of time travel make it even more of a delight to witness. One of the setbacks of this show could have easily been its time travelling storyline, because let's face it, it's difficult to create a reasonable time travel story. Often than not, shows dealing with this theme have the risk of losing the logical explanation and then witness everything going on a downward spiral. But Dark surely takes this theme at its best and delivers to us a complicated show that I'm guessing you'll eventually have the answers for. Dark's time travel exists as a metaphor of confronting your own self in the present, past and future, paving the way for growth and maybe even destruction too. So far, it hasn't made a misstep with its varying range of timelines and keeps a note of all the complexities by knitting plot threads together in a clean circle. But separating from the complexity of Dark, it's still able to ground you in the story through its further technical efforts from behind the camera. The forest setting provides an excellent view to the storyline, adding a sense of fear and dread in the viewer's mind. The caves too provide an atmospheric essence to the story, a pioneer of time travel that connects everything. The settings are eerie and mostly unsettling, and seem to be always announcing an impending doom. The cinematography that captures the shots in these locations really adds a huge boost to the series and the suspense-filled narrative. With utmost eerie footage, an excellent choice of casting, one of the best storylines, topped with a moody and atmospheric soundtrack, Dark is definitely a show worth watching for these reasons alone. It's science fiction writing at its best, a great interpretation of time travel with the paradoxes and questions pertaining to life and time. It is unique, gripping, gritty, and extremely binge-worthy. But they were some of the reasons why Dark Season 1 has become one of my favourite first seasons of a TV show that I have watched. I'm excited to check out Season 2 and see where this future narrative is going to end up. As I said, I was really enthralled by the themes and intergenerational storylines that this opening season was able to capture. At the onset, Dark explores the themes of love, sacrifice, pain, and even the greed of human beings, and what they may lead people to. It asks the question of how great is one's desire? Do we ever get the choice to change our heart's desires, or are we always trapped by them? But in my opinion, the greatness of Dark Season 1 lies in the show's concepts, which centre on being primarily concerned with determinism and the free will of human beings. This is something that shows from this year like Devs and Westworld have tried to tackle. Even though I enjoyed these shows, I don't think there's been quite a show like Dark that I have seen this year. It's of course mind-boggling, but the show explores its complex nature with such emotional and resonant connections. To pull this off is a great accomplishment, and it remains in my mind as a show that I will want to continuously revisit over the next couple of years. But regardless of what I thought, I'm interested to hear what all of you guys have to say on this opening season. So let me know down below what your reaction was to watching Dark Season 1, alongside your thoughts towards the themes portrayed in the Netflix series. To stay up to date with all of my future videos on Dark and other content on many upcoming TV shows and movies, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a like rating. I will be uploading my video on Season 2 in the next few weeks, so look out for that. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.